Number 65. Let's begin by offering our respectful obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shrunivadi Paskadyade Siddharane. Anyone who can put on the video, that would be appreciated. It's nicer to talk to a devotee than a name. Could you imagine coming to a class and you come in a suit with just your name on it? Now we're in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the summary, and the last verses of the Bhagavad Gita more or less fulfill the desire of Krishna. Although he's mentioned many different aspects of how to progress in spiritual life, still in this particular verses, Krishna will explain what is the quickest way of advancing towards actual self-realization and Krishna consciousness. He's explained many indirect ways, but in Kali Yuga especially, indirect means a lot of obstacles and very little opportunity to actually make tangible advancement. Therefore, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking to Ramananda Roy quoted from the Bhagavad Gita even some of these verses in the 18th chapter, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't accept them from the point of view that he wanted to start from the point of view of self-realization. In other words, Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter explains about how to become self-realized, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking from the point of view of being self-realized and how to progress further from there. Therefore, generally speaking, our Krishna consciousness movement begins with acting on the Madhyama Adhikari platform. For example, initiation actually means to voluntarily give up our false identification with this gross and subtle material body, and instead of thinking ourselves to be part of some particular identification of a male or female or particular country or intelligent or not so intelligent, so many different types of identification, to accept Gopi Bharata Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasana Dasa, that I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Not even that I am Krishna's servant, but I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Even in the 4th chapter, when Krishna tells us to approach a spiritual master, it is not that the spiritual master thinks himself to be a spiritual master and therefore independent of being a servant of Krishna and through Krishna and his spiritual master, through his spiritual master, learning how to become a proper servant of all living entities. That's actually self-realization, and therefore in the next verse, Lord Krishna says, Yash gyatva punamaham, evam yasi pandava, yena bhutani asheshani, drakshas yatmani atomayi. That when you have actually learned the truth, you know that all living entities are a part of me, and that they're within me, and that they belong to me. So the intelligence that Krishna, Paramatma, can give us is not just become conscious of Krishna as a person, which is certainly important, but also to become conscious of everyone else in their relationship to Krishna, and to serve Krishna appropriately through service to other living entities also. So in this 18th chapter, in this particular verse, Krishna will begin directly how to become conscious of him, and as we'll find out in the subsequent verses, ultimately how to act as a Madhyama Arakari, as one who has some discrimination. Ishvara tad adineshu puliseshu dvisatsu cha prema maitri kripo peka yet karoti samadhimaha. Then a Madhyama Adhikari sees Ishvara as the object of prema. But because he loves Krishna, he learns how to, on the basis of that, make friends with the devotees. Prema Maitri, Maitri is friendship. Kripa, and how to help those who are less advanced in that attitude of service, how to assist them in developing an attitude of service towards Krishna and towards his representatives, and through his representatives, appropriately serving all living entities. And for the Dvitsatsu, those who are envious, is upeksha. There's not fighting with them, especially in Kali Yuga. Sometimes there's an attempt to defeat their philosophy, even if they're not willing to change it for the sake of informing others who may be innocent and standing nearby, giving them the opportunity to understand things properly. Now, in this 18th chapter, the verse 65, Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Always think of me, become my devotee. Worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have a chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way as that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he'll be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is a dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Krishna, Godhead Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. Om Agyanatamanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Gita is a treatise of transcendental knowledge given to Arjuna, which is a spiritual science. Practically speaking, if there is any science, it's the basis of all science. Science means something which is true in the past, present, and future. And what is true, what is real, is the soul. The fact that we're eternal, as Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita from the very beginning, even before he gave the verse, Dehinosmin yata dehe. First of all, he told Arjuna that whatever you happen to say, quoting from scripture, talking about sociology, psychology, in the first chapter, which ultimately led to your putting down your bow and arrow and simply lamenting that everything's bad, this war is bad, the opposite side is bad, the fight is bad, the weather is bad, I have a stomach ache, it's bad, I think I'll go home and take rest and read about the fight in the newspapers maybe after it's over. No, Krishna didn't say, Arjuna, you're wrong, everything is good. He didn't say everything is bad. He said, you have the wrong vision. Therefore he says, there was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these people, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. In other words, Krishna says that not only we're eternal, but Krishna is also eternal. And our relation with Krishna is eternal also. Therefore, this is actually science. Otherwise, if this is not true, everyone on this call, by the time the call is over, you wouldn't even remember who you are because you wouldn't be who you are right now. You'd be someone different. If with the change of the body we were actually changing, then we wouldn't be here at the end of this call. We'd have disappeared along with our body. But because we're the eternal perceiver of the material existence, only because of ahamkara, we're falsely identified ourselves with this gross and subtle body, and therefore our perspective in life is based upon that. But Krishna gives us a method of coming to a different platform of consciousness if we're willing to accept Him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because in the absence of an absolute person, then everyone is trying to become that, to take his place. Quite unsuccessfully, quite futilely, but still that struggle is going on. And if someone for a few moments, or so here we call it years, but actually it's just a brief moments in eternal time, gets a position where he imagines himself to be the controller, then he becomes joyful, thinking that he's achieved success. But as Prabhupada points out in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, no one gets a position in the material world as a supposed controller without advertising themselves as a servant. The president gets elected on the grounds that he's going to be the best servant of the citizens. Of course, it's a lie, because they're all rascals. Not all of them, but the majority are rascals in Kali Yuga. No training. And therefore, they become the chief of the thieves. As I've given the example before, a group of thieves, they rob a bank, and they go to the hideout, and the head thief tells his fellow thieves, My dear fellow thieves, you did a great service by robbing that bank. I must say, all glories to the thieves. But now that you've robbed the bank, I only have one request to all these noble thieves. Please, I beg of you, let us divide this money up honestly. But they're all thieves. There's no question of honesty among the thieves. Their very basic principle is dishonesty. So everyone in the material world who has a material concept of life is a thief. Unsuccessful, because the material energy doesn't really allow anyone to actually steal from Krishna. But she imprisons anyone with that attitude into a material concept of life. The beginning of actual life, or the attempt to attain actual life, is the recognition that we're not this body, that we're actually a spiritual soul, and our success in life will be measured by not how much we so-called achieve in the material world, but how much we get out of our material concept of life and into the material, spiritual concept of life, ultimately of being Krishna's servant. Now, being a servant of Krishna is not like being a material servant. Krishna is the absolute and well-wishing friend of everyone. And to serve him means to be a absolute and well-wishing friend of everyone also. And there's no higher position than that. The struggle to become above everyone else, a futile struggle, illusory struggle, has no benefit for oneself or anyone else. But the struggle to try to help people recognize their real friend, who is the real controller, who actually can change things, who is changing everything in the material world, who's the real enjoyer, who, when he's happy, that he makes everyone else happy, and who is actually our actual well-wisher. Unfortunately, in the material world, people think, when Krishna tells us in the next verse to give up everything and surrender to him, it's like the child, he's about to drink poison, and the well-wishing parents tell him to give them the poison and accept their loving care. And the child says, it's my poison. I'll do what I want with it. He doesn't understand his well-wishing parents are simply want him to give up something which is going to give him harm and to accept something which will make him happy because of ignorance. The child thinks himself to be the possessor of his things that cause him problems and harm, and he's unwilling to give them up even when the well-wishing parents request him to do so. So it is not that our attachment to the ephemeral world will actually make us happy, because after all, the world is constantly changing at every moment, and therefore the idea that there's something here that can make us happy permanently is impossible, is a wrong idea. Because what we thought might make us happy has disappeared already and changed into another form. People think, if I buy a car or if I get a house, that will make me happy. But as with this body, in the course of time, everything breaks down. And therefore, it's not one's house, it's not one's car, it is not even our body. We're the servants of the body. We're the servants of the house. We're the servants of the car. We are simply servants trying to fix something which is unfixable. It is not that we should not fix our house. It is not that we should not fix our car. It is not that we should not take care of our body. But it shouldn't be in the idea that it's my house it is my car, it is my body, because if it was our body, it was my house, it was my car, I'd be able to maintain it and fix it or cause it or prevent it from becoming deteriorated, and eventually disappearing. But because I can't control it, what's happening to it, ultimately, therefore, how can I claim it to be mine? Even our beautiful body that we're in there right now, that we cherish so much and love and take care of, as it says in the story of the, when Kuvara and Manigriva, the sons of Kuvera, were in the celestial gardens, enjoying the Manasi and the Ganges with naked ladies, intoxicated. Then when Narada Muni cursed them because they appeared naked before Narada Muni to become trees, Narada Muni reflected that actually people are so much enamored by the material body, but who's actually the proprietor of the body? Is it the parents? Is it if one is a slave, the slave owner? Is it who's actually the proprietor of the body? And what is the destination of the body? Now we may take a photo and display it on Facebook, but in 10 years from now, 20 years, 50 years from now, 100 years, when we leave the body, what's the destination of the body? If it's burnt, it turns into ashes. If it's eaten in some cultures by vultures and dogs, then it becomes stool. If it's put into a coffin, then it becomes eaten by the worms, and therefore becomes also a different shape. Are we going to put that picture on the Facebook also? How many likes will we get if we do that? But that's the destination of the body. But the soul will not be changed at all, but it can be awakened. And two, its actual glory. And its glory is really not in terms of any material position. Its glory is eternally glorious in its service, loving service to Krishna and loving service to all living entities. That's its true glory. That's what actually makes everyone glorious, whether it be Krishna or Srimati Radharani or her maidservants or her friends or the cowherd boys or any living entity in Vaikuntha. Its glory is its loving service for Krishna and towards all living entities. As Krishna is glorious because of his eternal service to all living entities. So anyone who becomes a servant of Krishna automatically becomes glorious in his service assisting Krishna in his service to all living entities. In Krishna consciousness. And there's nothing more glorious than Krishna. And service, the only thing more glorious than Krishna is Srimati Radharani, who embodies service to Krishna, who makes Krishna and everyone else happy. And Krishna learns from Srimati Radharani, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how to become a better servant of Krishna and to all living entities. So the first thing is, Krishna says, Manmana, always think of me. Because thinking of Krishna means to actually associate with Krishna. Now, of course, we may not have that experience sometimes, that by chanting Hare Krishna, then we're actually thinking about Krishna. Therefore, we have to learn how to chant Hare Krishna in such a way is that we're thinking about Krishna. Of course, the very act of chanting Hare Krishna means that we've accepted that if one is initiated especially, that my goal in life, as it says in the Nectar of Devotion, as it says in Padma Purana, Smartavyak Sadato Vishnu, Vismartat Jatu Na Kinchit, Sarva Vidi Nisedhyasyor, Etira Eva Kinkara. That everything we're doing in sadhana bhakti, and we are supposed to be doing sadhana bhakti, because without doing sadhana bhakti, there's no chance in Kali Yuga of actually making any progress in spiritual life. The whole goal is to help us, at least when we're doing sadhana bhakti, to remember that we're doing it for Krishna, to become conscious of Krishna in the mood of service. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, when we chant Hare Krishna, the service, bhakti, of love, is to call to Krishna like a child calling for his mother, to reciprocate with a child calls for its mother because it knows its mother loves him or her, and he reciprocates with the mother out of having affection for the mother. He doesn't call usually for his father or for his uncle. He calls for his mother because the mother is the one who's most likely to give him affection and love, which is actually what he wants. And the mother's only pleasure, all her inconvenience, is to experience the affection and love of her child. So we're calling to Krishna in the same way, not to get something, but to experience, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Krishna himself desires love and affection, and he wants it to the maximum amount possible. Therefore, he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to experience the love that, first of all, the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. Because we have a tendency to love. Either we'll love this body, or we'll love Krishna, or we'll love something else. But love is our basic nature. It's eternal. It's inherent within our very being, is to love something. But the highest object of love is the one who has the maximum amount of love, which are Srimati Radharani and Krishna. But Krishna, he knows that he can love Srimati Radharani, but there's no one who loves him more than Srimati Radharani. There's no one who has greater love for him than Srimati Radharani, and she has more love for Krishna than Krishna has for herself, for himself. Therefore, Krishna wants to experience the love that Srimati Radharani has for him. So we learn from Srimati Radharani how we can love Krishna more than we love even ourselves. Selfless love. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Krishna himself wanted to experience that selfish love that Srimati Radharani has for himself, because it's that love which is the highest pleasure. And then when she loves Krishna, Krishna reciprocates with that love by loving her. So he wanted to experience the love that he has for Srimati Radharani, what that feels like, how Srimati Radharani feels that, experiences that love. And he wanted to realize the wonderful qualities that he has that only Srimati Radharani can experience. So even Krishna can't experience these things without experiencing Srimati Radharani's experience. Therefore he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even better than being God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to be a servant of God and realize what he himself wants to experience through Srimati Radharani, through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what he's experiencing. So part of that is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear about Krishna because that invoked his love, Krishna, as well as gave him experience of how Krishna was loving him, as well as his own love for Krishna. As Srimati Radharani, of course, we have love for Krishna. We want to experience that. We can experience Krishna's love for ourselves and everyone else, and we can realize the wonderful qualities that Krishna has that invokes that love that we have and everyone else has for Krishna. So Krishna is not some mean controller who's trying to lord it over the material nature, who's causing us harm and putting us into difficulty. He's trying to get out of the material, get us out of material experience, out of our material identification. And if we suffer in the material world, then we're surprised. Wait a second. Modern society has promised that I should be happy with all the conveniences, with all the knowledge, with all the arrangements it's making. How can I suffer? Every billboard I see has happy faces everywhere. And the only unhappy face I see is when I look in the mirror. And I'm wondering, how is this possible? There must be something wrong with me or the process of Krishna consciousness. But actually, everyone in the material world, as Krishna says, if they're honest, from Brahma to the smallest insect, they're all facing the same problems. Changing world, changing body, changing relationships, everything's changing. We're being tossed by the modes of material nature, sometimes drowning, sometimes coming up for fresh of air, and there's no end to it. And if that's the formula for happiness, then we're really we're really unfortunate if that's our formula. To throw ourselves into the ocean of material misery, drowned in it, try to swim, and then drown again, and think that gulp of air, that one breath of air I get every once in a while, that's fantastic. No matter how long I stay under and drown in the ocean of material miseries, if I can just get one breath of air, everything is worth it. But Krishna doesn't want that, and therefore he doesn't arrange for the fortunate that they become too attached to their material experience. Instead, he offers the opportunity to directly associate with him if we can learn the art of thinking about him. And that means, more or less, change our feelings from hankering and lamentation for the material energy to hankering and lamentation to the spiritual energy. We don't have to give up hankering. We don't have to give up lamentation. We have to redirect it towards a source which will actually be profitable. To hanker for Krishna and lament over the fact that we don't have him is very auspicious. And if we hear about Krishna, if we think about him and experience the bliss of Krishna and his devotees when they're hankering for him and lamenting over his absence, then we'll actually realize what real hankering lamentation should be directed. Hankering is not bad, lamenting is not bad. Eternally we're going to be doing that. But we should hanker for something which will cause us happiness and lament over something that will cause us happiness too. So that's called hearing about Krishna. And the beginning means that we have to turn our attention to Krishna. And the best way of doing that is to actually chant the Hare Krishna mantra. That's probably the most difficult thing to do. You can conquer a country, you could become a multi-billionaire, You could get all the gold medals at the Olympics. That's easy compared to conquering our minds. And to actually chant the Hare Krishna mantra, the material mind doesn't really make it easy for us. First of all, to actually chant consistently the entire mantra and not become impatient and skip over our beads or chant something, half the mantra, or leave out some of the words, or to chant the mantra and not even bother listening to it. That's a real challenge. In the material world, they have what's called boxing matches, and they called rounds. They have like so many rounds that they go through. So when we're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, in our first round, chanting, fighting against Maya, and trying to take shelter of Krishna, we shouldn't get knocked out in the first round. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We fall asleep in the first round, we got knocked out.
Если вы
No, we have to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we should actually hear ourselves chanting sincerely to Shrimati Radharani and Krishna, just asking them to engage us in their loving service. It's that simple. If we actually ask them to engage us in their loving service, what will happen? It is not that suddenly the heavens will open and Radha and Krishna will coming down and Krishna will give us a concert on his flute. And Srimati Radharani will dance for us. No, the simple fact is, if we just think about Krishna, that's the fulfillment of that desire to engage in his loving service. If we think favorably of him, not like Kamsa, but if we think favorably of him, ask him to engage us in his loving service, and we remember the deities, remember a picture of Krishna we saw, remember something we read, remember Krishna's form, that's the fulfillment of our highest desire to think about Krishna. That's better than becoming a prince or a princess, or becoming famous or infamous, becoming expert in any form of knowledge, becoming recognized. Just to think about Krishna is the highest fulfillment of all desire. And if we do that, then we have to learn how to become his devotee. If we think about him and become inspired by Krishna's wonderful form, by his qualities, his pastimes, then gradually the taste for hearing about Krishna, the taste for thinking about Krishna, the taste for serving Krishna will develop. Then we'll actually see that there's nothing better than becoming a servant of Krishna and servant of Krishna's devotees. Then we'll learn the art of actually worshiping Krishna in our body, with our mind, with our words. Then Krishna consciousness will not just be a theory, but it'll be an experience. We'll know how to invoke that experience by sitting down, for instance, in a nice, clean, quiet place with the pictures of the deities and chant Hare Krishna in the mood of worship. Not just, I have to get my rounds done, I have to do this service, whatever, and therefore I know a shortcut to getting my rounds done in a very short period of time. Shortcut is Shnik Shnik Ram Ram Day 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 Hey Kitty Kitty Hey Kitty Kitty. And I may attract many cats from the neighborhood, but the nice part is that my rounds get done efficiently, although effectively, I don't become conscious of Krishna. After all, we think we're going to be here forever and ever in this body, in our circumstance. Therefore, Krishna consciousness can wait until tomorrow. And tomorrow it can wait till the next day. And therefore, I'm getting my rounds done faster. I don't only chant Shnik Shnik Ram Ram Day 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 Day, but now I chant Shnik Shnik Ram Ram, and I don't need the Day Day Day. If we actually chant Hare Krishna, then of course it's boring even to chant clearly. That's like liberation. If we're actually not distracted by our minds, whatever it comes up with, because it will come up with so many things as soon as we start chanting. It's like now in part of this world, it's spring or almost summer. And during the winter, if one is cleaning the house, sometimes people sweep all the dust underneath the rug and they think the house is clean because they can't see the dust. But then when it's spring and they lift up the rug to clean, then all the dust comes out and they think, where did all this dust come from? I was trying to clean, but it seems the more I clean, the more dust there is. Actually, the dust was always there, but now it's appearing, and now we have the challenge of cleaning it. We've neglected it, and now we're going to be cleaning it. So if we actually we chant Shnik Shnik Ram Ram Day 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 Day, there's no problem for the mind because it's already bewildered. It seems we're used to being bewildered. But then when we start cleaning, we think, I thought I was so pure, and now I'm seeing I can't even control my own mind. In the sense that as soon as the dirt comes up from my mind, then suddenly I become attached to whatever comes up. How is this? I was so pure, I was so detached, I started to chant, so many things came to my mind from the chanting. So the mind is responsible for all of my attachments. The chanting is responsible for all my attachments, all my remembrances, all of my problems. So one has to learn detachment, as Krishna says. That requires some philosophy, that we're not the mind, all these things that we thought happened to us, all these sources of lamentation and misery that bother us, they're all just due to illusion. And whatever I'm hankering for now, if I follow that path, will also lead to the same disappointment in the future. Therefore, by some knowledge, gradually these attachments will go away, and we'll actually concentrate on the chanting. Try to at least chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At least we'll chant the whole mantra. And no matter what the mind says, because the mind will always go, boo. And we'll go, oh no, please, don't say boo, my mind. Don't. And then the mind will say, oh, you don't like me saying boo? Then boo. Then we'll have a dialogue with our mind. We'll say, oh, mind, please leave me alone. And the mind will say, oh, you really want me to leave you alone? Well, I'll never leave you alone. I'm your best friend. And you're trying to become conscious of Krishna, but that's the wrong path. Therefore, as long as you're trying to become conscious of Krishna, I'm going to say, boo. And as long as we want to dialogue with our mind, we're going to get the same answer every time. Therefore, at least some detachment to chant clearly the best we can, the Maha Mantra. It's very difficult to do it at first because it's very painful to actually neglect what we think is our welfare, our material existence, our material desires, our material relationships. It's almost impossible to neglect these things all at once. Therefore, the gopis were glorified because they gave up their husbands, seemingly gave up their husbands. They didn't really give up their husbands, but anyhow, seemingly gave up their husbands, their prestige, their welfare to serve Krishna. Of course, they weren't bereft of anything by serving Krishna, but they were able to do so, and therefore Krishna glorifies them. The scriptures glorify them because they were able to give up the strong attachment to material existence. So that strong attachment to material existence we've all cultivated for only Krishna knows how many lifetimes. So even to try to give it up is glorious. But give it up for something higher, for Krishna consciousness. But as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that which in the beginning may be bitter like poison, but at the end is like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So we should try to first of all become good. And that's difficult, because no one is appreciated in modern society for being good. The more wicked you are, the more selfish you are, the more all bad qualities are developed, then the more you're appreciated as a normal citizen. And if you try to become good, then you're considered to be whimsical, weak, lack of self-esteem, naive. But modern society has not led to any real progress in obtaining at least happiness. What to speak of proper relationships with any other living entity? What to speak of having any other desire other than immediate gratification? No conception of the soul, no conception of the super soul who can guide us towards eternal freedom, no conception of the goal of Krishna, our loving relationship with him, and through him with all living entities. So modern societies, andaya tandira pagiyamanas, tepisha tantra urudami bara. It's the blind leading the blind. We've chosen so many leaders, and they're wanting us to think about them always. They're causing us so many problems, all in the name of protecting us. They create the problems and then tell us we have to take shelter of them to solve the problems that they themselves are creating. So this is known as cheating, and if we take shelter of these cheaters, then we're simply foolish. So therefore one has to take shelter of someone like Krishna, who can guide us out of this material concept of life, because he's the super soul in our heart. He spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and he's speaking it to us also, individually and personally, to lead us back to the spiritual world, where real life begins. And Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Kali Santaru Upanishad tell us we can do that by chanting Hare Krishna regularly and clearly, and then eventually we can understand Krishna exists, Srimati Radharani exists, spiritual world exists, and if we ask them to engage us in their service, loving service, then just by asking them to do that sincerely, then the spiritual remembrances of them and their associates and their pastimes, these will all come, and then we'll be living in the spiritual world even in this lifetime, rather than in our material conception of life, our mental conceptions of life, which are only full of pain and misery and disappointment. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you. Any questions? Parthasarthi Das.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. First of all, have a lovely Sirivyasa Puja, and I might see you next year. And I want to ask you, please, when we say that at the beginning is poison and at the end is nectar, to what kind of end we are talking?
Well, the mode of goodness means liberation from the material concept of life. When we realize that we're the soul, and that no matter what happens to this body or the mind, that nothing will happen to
Hare
us.
Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm seriously, physically already in pain over my. Can you
Okay.
please remember that, somebody has to translate you on some language which is not your own. Please, 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 please. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
It is Vinitya. Okay. So the living entity has found himself to be in the mode of ignorance and passion, which means, basically speaking, either his hankering or his lamenting. When we stop hankering and lamenting, that's called coming to the mode of goodness. But the mode of goodness means also has activities. And therefore Krishna explains what those activities are. For instance, in the 13th chapter, Krishna explains Amaridvam Adamvidvam Ahimsa Shanti Arjavam Acharya Pasanam Socham Styriam Atma Vinigraha, the process of cultivating knowledge. Beginning with Amaridvam, humility, understanding that we're 1/10,000th the size of the tip of hair and size souls. That means we're understanding that no matter what we're hankering for or what we're lamenting has nothing to do with ourselves in the material world. And that my real position of humility is that I should serve the Supreme for everyone's benefit, including my own. I should water the root of the tree rather than each leaf and branch that I've selected. So that's coming to the mode of goodness. Now it's painful because material energy is not encouraging us to do that. As soon as we try to make some advancement in devotional service, as it says, yoga chalati manasa, because Arjuna was a little disturbed that I'm trying so hard. But what happens if I'm a failure? So Krishna says that's Maya's main weapon. As soon as one tries to make advancement in spiritual life, then Maya will try to dissuade the practitioner by so many allurements. Oh, you had a hard time in your married life. You thought your wife was going to be a slave, or that your husband was going to be provided with whatever you wanted. And it didn't happen like that. But don't worry. I have another person I can put into your life, and they're going to be your soulmate. Whatever you want, your husband will give you, this husband, and whatever you want, this wife will serve you. So Maya will say, don't be discouraged. You've gained so much experience by your failures in the material world, and now failure is a pillar of success. And now you can become successful in material life and live happily ever after with your new soulmate. So that's called yoga chalati manasa. As soon as we try to take shelter of Krishna, Maya will offer us something, some idea at least, how we can become happy in the material world, some hope for it. And when we give that up, that's called the mode of goodness, advancing towards the mode of goodness. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. I am supposed to give you a gift today, but you are giving me a gift instead. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Shinanga Manjari, Devidasi.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the amazing class. But your Vyasa Puja, like the solar calendar, is tomorrow, right? 25th.
Yeah, this 25th, actually.
Yeah, we will celebrate anyways here in Peru today. We'll celebrate later on.
Yeah.
Okay, Guru Maharaj, I have a question that is a side question. It's not related with the class, but it came as I was preparing one class for Miraflores. So I searched in internet for an image of the different perceptions of Brahman realization, and I found in Srila Prabhupada in Vedabase that it was the first Ananda, Annamaya, then Pranamaya, Gyanamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya, and stops here. Just the thing is that I found on internet other images that I wanted to show in the class, that then they have the conscious, like self-conscious, and God, conscious of God. But this sounded a bit like impersonalist to me. So I just wanted to clear this with you. It ends in Anandamaya. There is no conscious of God after that. The level ends in Anandamaya, right?
Well, Anandamaya means to become conscious of Krishna. Without
Okay.
becoming conscious of Krishna, there's no Ananda.
Okay.
There's Vijnanamaya,
Yes.
which is realization of Brahman,
Okay.
that I'm not
Brahman.
this
Yes.
body.
Yes.
And Anandamaya is Krishna consciousness.
Okay, it's the last level then. Anandamaya is the last level. Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay. And as I suspected, this was like impersonalism, what I found, the picture. Okay. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you. Tirthapad Das.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I may have asked this sometime, not sure, years ago, but I'll just play a small thing. I don't know if this is going to come through very well. I don't know. That's just Prabhupada chanting japa. If so, when we hear that, we might, imagine that Prabhupada's not. He's chanting quite rapidly, and so I don't need to chant very clearly because Prabhupada's not.
Well, take a tape of Srila Prabhupada and slow it down. Try to hear how he's chanting. He may
There is
chant more
slower
quickly
versions
than we
available.
do because he's in a different platform of consciousness. But if we try to imitate, we should try to hear Prabhupada how he's chanting and try to imitate him in the sense we should try to chant the same mood that he's chanting. We can't try to chant as fast as he does. Or we can't even chant slowly, clearly. Now, if we think that Prabhupada's not chanting clearly, slow it down, the chanting, and try to see if he's chanting clearer than I thought he was chanting. And even if he's not, that if you're in the spiritual world with Krishna, then it's hard not to be Krishna conscious. And the aim of chanting is to help us become conscious of Krishna. And if you're conscious of Krishna, it doesn't matter how you're chanting. Okay?
Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you.
Maharaj, I apologize sincerely. I did not get the answer whatsoever. Because of the speed you were saying, because maybe I just don't understand. Could you please? I just
Repeat.
didn't get it.
Okay.
Not repeat, maybe different words, because like the point is not that we're get to the spiritual world. I just didn't get the concept. Could you please explain the concept one more time?
Yeah. When we're hearing Srila Prabhupada chanting, then we may, because our ability to hear is rather limited. And we may imagine that Prabhupada's not clearly chanting. But if we slow his tape down, then we'll find out that actually he's chanting clearer than we thought. But we have to, because we have no ability to hear properly, therefore we have to take the tape and put it on a slower speed to hear how he's actually chanting. Is that clear?
Yes, this is clear. Thank you. Mhm.
And even if he's not chanting according to our estimation, as clearly as we think he should, but if he's in the spiritual world with Krishna, then his chanting is fulfilling the reason for the chanting, that is to become conscious of Krishna. We're not chanting just to exercise our tongue and our lips. We're chanting to become conscious of Krishna. And if one is actually conscious of Krishna, then all the goal of chanting is fulfilled. Is that clear?
Yes, yes, understood. Okay.
Like, for instance, when there was one devotee who was receiving Gayatri mantra from Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was trying to give him the Gayatri mantra, and he couldn't pronounce anything properly. So finally Prabhupada just said, "That's all right, you're sincere. Krishna understands. Krishna's Bhava Grahanam. Krishna understands our mood and our desire." Who's that? Who's the devotee who's famous for Rath Yatra?
Janananda,
Jayananda,
Jayananda.
Jayananda.
Yeah,
Dayananda.
Jayananda. Yeah,
Jayananda,
Jayananda.
Jayananda, yeah.
Jayananda. And
Yeah.
Prabhupada was giving him Gayatri. He said that. So we should try to not only hear how Prabhupada's chanting, how clear or not clear, we should try to hear his mood. Try to understand the mood of like a child calling for his mother. Now, a child calling for its mother may not pronounce the mother's name so clearly at times, but certainly the feeling is there. And it's the feeling that we're trying to ultimately develop. Is that all right?
Yes, much more clearly. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Nirguna Das.
I guess I have a question. We are in the material world and we have material concept about ego and about behavior or some obvious behaviors, obvious symptoms of people's character. And since we come to this world, because sorry, there is an airport nearby, so planes are- since if I understand, we come to this world from jealousy of Krishna, so we want to be the center. So it's kind of form of narcissism, maybe, I don't know.
Well,
But we
I hope
see
Nirguna, I hope the question doesn't go more than my class.
the
Could you make
what?
the question? Can you make the question a little short so we can answer it? Because
Yeah, how do we see the parts that Krishna speaks about himself without thinking that he is himself like some kind of have narcissism or something, you know, that he says, like my devotees see me in the morning. I'm sorry, that's the nature of my question. With the eyes like guys sun, you know. So for tears, feel like, oh, this guy is like, this person is very much. So
I don't think I'm going too fast, but I don't think Lavanga Mataji, did you understand what he's saying?
No, but I am not attempting to. Is it okay?
Okay. So let me try and answer it. Krishna is not, uh, he's not simply thinking I'm God and therefore everyone should love me and surrender to me, etc. It doesn't matter what I do. No, Krishna Prabhupada gives the example of a child playing with his reflection in a mirror. He doesn't see anything different from himself, but he loves everything outside himself more than he loves himself. So when he makes statements about his devotees, he's actually worshiping his devotees when he makes those statements. But because we don't have,
Maharaj, I'm so sorry. Either I am so dumb, or today is the hardest part. I don't understand. The child who is looking at the mirror, the Krishna
he plays
glorifying
with
his
the
devotee.
mirror.
How did we get from this to this? I'm so sorry. I'm just like lost. What?
Because the child, when he looks in the mirror, he sees himself, what he thinks is, he sees himself. Probably gives that example. And therefore he plays with what he thinks is with himself when he looks into the mirror. He makes a face and he enjoys himself making a face. Is that clear? So when
Yes,
he
that
sees,
part is clear. Okay.
when Krishna sees this everything else outside of himself, he enjoys himself. He's only enjoying himself. But he loves what he's seeing more than he loves his own self, because what he's seeing outside of himself, which is only his self, gives him more pleasure than he does internally in himself. A little subtle to understand. But the bottom line is that Krishna loves everyone. We shouldn't think whatever he says or does is outside of that loving feeling that he has for everyone and everything. Is that clear? Lavanga?
Maharaj, I've translated. I've translated it clearly. However, to understand this concept is not that simple. So I'm going to try my best.
Good, that's all that's necessary. Thank you. Loka
Hare
Guru?
Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your practical class, and it's extremely useful when you share more deep instruction connected with the practical application of sadhana bhakti. My question is related to when we chant and we pray to Radha Krishna to engage us in service. So should we be like more specific? What kind of service? I mean, in our condition, because it's obvious we're not aware of our eternal service.
No, we're not necessarily, when we're chanting japa, praying for anything else other than to become conscious of Krishna. We're not asking for any specific service. As a matter of fact, it's not very good to do that. We should just hope to become conscious of Krishna, his name, some form, some qualities, some pastimes, some experience of what it's like to be in the spiritual world with Krishna, or at least on the spiritual platform with Krishna. That's all we want. What our services are externally, that we already have. And wanting to have some other service, that's apart from chanting. Of course, it's not exactly apart, because everything depends. The chanting is expressing a desire to become conscious of Krishna. And whatever service we're doing, that may be due to different factors, such as our psychophysical nature, our circumstances, etc., etc. But whatever our psychophysical nature is, whatever our circumstances are, whatever our inspiration may be, at the same time, whatever we do in this world, we should become conscious of Krishna, which is what the chanting is meant for. We should become conscious of Krishna and do it out of loving service, as a loving service to him and his devotees. All right, so I'm going to stop there. Sorry, Lavanga Mataji. We'll try to do better next time. So thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur
Haribol.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Divya Sapuja, Guru Maharaj.
Samveta Bhaktivinoda Ki
Thank you so much,
Jai
Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Thank you,
Haribol,
Guru
Guru
Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Kumari.
Thank
As
you,
usual,
everyone. Thank
you're
you,
the best.
Labanga Mataji. Thank you, Anihotra Prabhu, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
Agnihotra.
so
Thank you,
much,
Labanga.
Kumari.
Thank you so much to everyone. Have a lovely week. Jai Shri Guru
Hare
Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.